Friends, we have Suresh Dhingra. He will be the host for today's show. And we also have Rachna, our guests for today. We are online. Suresh, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, thank you, Srihari. Rachna, you're on air, right? You can hear us loud and clear?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you very much for joining on the show today. And
thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for all the listeners who tuned in to NRI Samay from wherever you are in whatever part of the world. Rachna, while I was preparing for this, interview or sort of a discussion, I remembered something that, back when I was in college, this was many years ago, I wasn't picked up for my college cricket team, and it hurt me a lot. And it hurt me so bad that I couldn't talk to some of my very close friends. But with time, I was able to forget about it, and I got selected the next time, and I moved on. So the point I'm trying to make is, time has the power to heal anything. But then there is the Bhopal Gas Tragedy, which has been almost 3 decades now, but the memories are still very fresh, for the simple reason that there was never a proper closure for this. So, we wanted to understand from your perspective, as you are an ardent supporter of this cause who happen to dedicate almost 10 years of your life now, since 2003, if I'm correct?
Yes, you are. So, as you said, time is a good healer for a lot of things, but in Bhopal, we see that the injustice has not stopped in the last 3 decades. And this not only being the world's worst industrial disaster and, killing 25,000 people, injuring hundreds of thousands of people, but the injustice still continues. There are children today who are being born with birth defects. There are people living in behind the abandoned factory who are forced to drink contaminated water. 28 years later, we still do not know how to give proper medical care to people who have been exposed to these poisons. There's no such thing as treatment protocol. And I think the worst is that there is not a single individual, a single corporation who has been made to pay for this big disaster, for this tragedy that continues. And that is a precedent that people in Bhopal are very, very concerned about, that corporations can basically come and kill and pollute and then leave with any kind of liability. And that is why Bhopal is so much a live issue for so many people, because it's not just a fight about compensation, but it's a fight about justice, a life of dignity that most people in Bhopal who have been exposed to the toxic gases on the night of 2nd and 3rd December 1984 have been deprived of.
I see. So, given that you are at the ground level, working with the victims day in and day out, what exactly do you think is the reason for not having a closure on this, or why hasn't there been, significant efforts made in this direction? Is it, I know it's a simple question, but may not be a simple answer to this. Do you think it's, the central government of India or the state government of Madhya Pradesh or our own people, Union Carbide, or a combination of all? Like, where are we missing this link?
There are 2 things. One, that our government, whether it is the central government or the state government, they do not have the political will to prosecute people and corporations who are responsible. Because foreign direct investment in our country has much more weight, and people in Bhopal have been considered expendable in front of that. And this is not just new to Bhopal. Bhopal was at much larger scale, but this has continued on many years. If you look at Kodaikanal in Tamil Nadu, if you look at now POSCO, and now what we are going to do is we are going to have disasters 100 times worse than Bhopal if we are going to bring in all this nuclear stuff and what people in Kodamkulam are fighting. So, it is because corporations are only concerned of one thing, and that is bottom line profit. So obviously they don't want to pay, and our governments have no will in holding them in paying and bringing justice here.
Right. So in terms of, getting a closure on this, if we were to talk from the perspective of the victims or their families, do you think they are still waiting for like an acknowledgement of the wrongdoing that has happened, or are they waiting for the compensation, or they're just waiting for providing a safe and healthy environment? Like what will what is the justice that the victims are sort of hoping to fight for?
Yeah. So victims have never waited. They have fought for the last 28 years. And the reason that this issue is still alive is because people in Bhopal have decided that they will not take it lying down, that they will fight against this injustice. So, what people are asking is so minimal. They're asking for fair compensation. They're asking for a safe environment, clean drinking water. They're asking that there be that information on the research be released by Dow Chemicals so that there can be proper treatment of the third generation that is now getting affected by the poisons. So they're asking very basic things that anyone living in any part of the world should be entitled to as their basic rights. So they're not asking for anything extraordinary. So, and for the last 28 years, all these basic things have not been given to them, despite their constant struggle, despite walking from Bhopal to Delhi, despite taking on massive fasts and being arrested and being beaten up by the police, people of Bhopal have bore the brunt of it, whereas corporations have nothing. They have not paid in any way for this disaster.
Right. And do you feel at some level that the fight that has been going on for the past 2-3 decades has almost been isolated just to the victims or their families, and including, some ardent supporters like you and other folks, in India as well as abroad? But by and large, it has been a very, like a secluded group, if you will. Do you see this as the same, like one of the reasons also that there is lack of awareness with regards to the current situation of the fight for justice?
It is absolutely true that there is, even in India itself, there is such lack of awareness that Bhopal is not something that happened 28 years ago, that Bhopal still continues today. But I have to say that Bhopal evokes a kind of emotion in so many people all over the world, irrespective of, the borders or the countries that they live in, that they would want to get involved and they want to do something. And if you even just look at the issue of Olympics, there has been massive outrage from people in UK because of how strongly they feel on the issue of Bhopal. But there is definitely lack of awareness that Bhopal is not something that happened almost 30 years ago, but Bhopal still continues, and lives in Bhopal are still being poisoned on a daily basis.
Right. And, talking about the London Olympics, the fact that Dow decided to be one of the sponsors for the London Olympics, to me, not to trivialize or anything, to me this has been a blessing in disguise, because Dow sort of by sponsoring the London Olympics, it has I think helped to create more awareness around it. It sort of turned the spotlight on its own. Do you agree with this view of Dow sponsoring the London Olympics?
Well, this is the thing. Dow would want to sponsor anything as prestigious as the Olympics, right? But our major concern is with the International Olympic Committee and the London Organizing Committee, because they did not do any of their due diligence on this issue. Dow Chemicals faces civil, criminal, and environmental liabilities in this country.
Right.
Indian government is asking them to pay billions of dollars in compensation. They have been fined, fined for bribing Indian officials in India to obtain registration. I mean, they hardly have a record of environment sustainability. I mean, if you look at what they have done in Vietnam or Nicaragua or even in U.S., so, and from the very beginning, the sponsors have always bought the line of Dow Chemical, which is they are not responsible for Bhopal, and they have never bothered to look and listen to what people in Bhopal have to say, because what we are saying is not just out of thin air. We're saying everything which are based on facts and figures, and we have documents to back up what we are saying. And that has been. And the reason we have opposed this so much, because it just legitimizes Dow's stand. If they are allowed to become sponsors of such a prestigious game, it just legitimizes that you can have corporations like Dow who are actually responsible for committing a genocide in a country and have so many cases against them, but it is okay because they're giving a lot of money to some games. To not just any games, but games which had the message of peace and brotherhood and justice. All of that is totally opposite of what Dow has done or continues to do in Bhopal.
Right, right. And what is the latest stance of the Indian Olympic Association? Are they going to, I know there were some press releases, I think early part of March, where they were saying they are going to boycott these games. Is this stance still the same, or have they changed it? Do you know what the latest is?
That was never the stand of Indian Olympic Association. They have just been very good at doing PR and nothing else. And that's the same with Indian government also. I mean, which country will allow such kind of insults? Which country will say, okay, that's fine, 25,000 people in this country have been killed by a corporation, and we have been trying to hold them accountable. They don't really show up to our courts, but that's okay. We will go to games where a lot of money has come and has been sponsored by this company. So what I said, whether it is IOA or whether it is Indian government, they have no political will in holding Dow Chemical accountable. And their stand is not going to change. We don't think there is going to be a boycott. We have been pushing for the boycott for almost a year, more than a year now, but it doesn't seem like that IOA is going to do anything like that. But we are hoping Indian government might, because the end decision is of the Indian government.
Right.
But we're still not sure about that.
Right, right. And I think we have a question online where Mr. Srihari is asking, is there any international pressure to get justice for the victims of Bhopal? Also, in lieu of the London Olympics, you mentioned that there are you see a lot of Londoners actually protesting against Dow sponsoring. Do you see that as a viable like a source of international pressure? Is that actually having any sort of impact on the Indian government?
It's not going to have any impact. It is not enough by any means, but it is definitely, it's been raised in the first time that the issue of Bhopal was raised in the UK Parliament was through the issue of Olympics. I mean, there are some that want to raise this up. There is a massive Indian community that is interested in it, and there are other people in London, other activists and other people who are concerned who want to raise this up. But that is by no means enough. I mean, if we are going to shake up the stand of LOCOG and IOC, the pressure has to come from all over. And U.S., I mean, and other European countries and other North American countries need to step forward on this issue.
I see. And what are some of your initiatives that you have taken up either in Bhopal or in ICJB or in London, for example, to sort of exert more pressure on the Olympics Committee itself? Like, what are the other initiatives so our listeners can see if there's any practical way for them to get involved in this?
There is a petition online on change.org on asking LOCOG to drop Dow as a sponsor. We already have 30,000 signatures on that, so if more people sign on, that would be great. Writing to your local Olympic organization, asking them to, register a protest with IOC is another way we have done things. We have gotten Indian Olympians, former Olympians, to also write to IOA and IOC that they should drop Dow. There is a Bhopal survivor currently who's touring all over UK to tell them how situation is in Bhopal and why Dow should not be allowed to be a sponsor. But at an individual level and at a group level, people can do a lot. They can write to IOC, they can write to their local congressmen, senators, in asking them to write and ask them to write to IOC and register protests. They can, and more visibility that their actions get on why Dow should not be involved in this, and targeting LOCOG and IOC will definitely make a lot of difference.
I see. And you mentioned that you have reached out to former Indian Olympics, athletes. Are you also in touch with any of the current athletes? And if so, how are they reacting to the whole situation?
I've been only in touch with one of the current Olympian. He's an archer. He's supportive, but anyone else who has qualified from India really does not want to take any stand on this issue, right, because they would rather go play for the Olympics rather than take any stand on this. Right.
We have another question online, Rachna. Does Rachna support the Kudamkulam nuclear power plant protests?
Rachna, I think yes, Rachna definitely supports it, and I think anyone, who has been working with issue like this will have no choice but to support, because to see the kind of, pain and suffering people have been going through for the last 28 years when they've been exposed to a toxic gas, because Kudamkulam, if something happens, it will be 1,000 times worse. We're not talking about a half a town or 500,000 people. We're talking of millions of people. And basically what Kudamkulam is facing, there's so much state oppression. They have been told not to publish anything and all this. So we definitely support the protest, because it is, at the end of the day, it is not, in the Kudamkulam thing, it's not just the poor that are going to be affected. It's going to affect a lot of people.
Right. Now, the support for the protest at Kudamkulam, is it primarily because, we are against the nuclear power, or is it because we are not sure that India is in a situation, or the Indian government is in a situation to ensure all the safety precautions or the evacuation measures, or there isn't complete, transparency around how these nuclear power plants are going to operate, what is their cost-benefit analysis, etc., Because one of the things that really played a major role in the Bhopal gas tragedy is that the Union Carbide sort of compromised on the safety precautions.
Exactly. So it's and Union Carbide knew that a disaster like this would happen. They shut down the refrigeration system. All of this, people around who lived just across the factory had no idea what was being manufactured. They didn't know that if there was an exposure, you could save themselves. They could save themselves by just putting water. They just ran in the direction of wind, because they had no, and more they ran, the faster they died. And same story is being repeated in Kudamkulam. I mean, people do not know what is going to be the impact on the environment. Everything is under secret and is under the Secrecy and Privacy Act, and everything is barred from people who are living there. And come on, I mean, the Indian government, we have almost no faith that this nuclear reactor is at all safe, and people in this area, around the area, have no knowledge about any of the public hearings that have happened. So no, none of the procedure has been followed because this is considered a top secret, thing in India. So there are a lot of issues with transparency and environmental standards, which is basically going to repeat a Bhopal-like disaster.
I see. So you're not so much against the nuclear power, but you're against the fact that there's lack of transparency or the safety precautions or the environmental related, prevention production measures that the government might fail to take.
Absolutely, and government has failed to take. I mean, right. You look at any other place. You look at uranium mines in Jharsuguda. You look at so many other places. The government has failed to take this, so it doesn't exactly build credibility. And in this special instance, everything is going to be because it is top secret. None of it is disclosed to people. And now what government is, the first thing would have been that they should have taken people in confidence. But instead what they're doing, they are slapping people with this Official Secrets Act, sedition. Is this the way to treat people from their own country who are asking that please tell us what exactly are you going to do here, how much you are going to produce here, and we do not want this. They're simple things that they are asking, right. And instead of answering any of that, they are slapping all these really serious charges, putting people in jail, shutting them down, right. and leaving them with almost no option.
Right. Now, listening to you just in the past 20 minutes, it's an uphill task that you and I think your fellow activists and even the victims themselves are up against. So I cannot even imagine what kind of hardships you guys have to go through and who all are the people whom you have to fight with, deal with on a day-to-day basis. But these kind of activities are very hard to sustain also, right? We can do this sort of protests or we can do these sort of, agitations for a few weeks, maybe a few months, but this has going on for so many years. So how do you actually maintain this kind of, the same sense of spirit and the same sense of fighting ability?
Well, I personally maintain the spirit because I see survivors themselves being in the forefront of the struggle, that their desire to get justice. And it's not that it's always negative. We have won some very big battles. We have been able to get clean drinking water. It might have taken us 12 years, but we have been finally able to get that. We have been able to get some things in medical care. So it is also the victories, the small victories that you get, that gives you all that hope and inspiration. And without sustaining it, there is no way any struggle could be won, and especially being as big, with the Bhopal issue. So definitely my inspiration comes from the women in Bhopal who have bore the brunt of the disaster in terms of, women who became the breadwinners because their husbands could not work as they were exposed so badly to the gas, who took care of their little children who were sick and then came out on the streets and fought. And most of them poor women who came out on the streets and said, no, we will not take this and we will fight. So it is, and that is the only reason that the issue of Bhopal is still so fresh in people's mind.
Right. Rachna, we have a caller who wants to ask you a question, Sri Hari from LA. Sri, you can go ahead with your question, sir.
Hi, Rachna. Thanks for coming to the NRI Samay and interacting with all of us. And also thanks for fighting for the important cause of Bhopal victims. So my question is from the in and around Bhopal, what is the response or involvement of the representatives, politicians? What are they promising when they go to the elections, or then how are they following it up?
Yeah. So the Bhopal, after the June, there was lot of noise made after this. There was a verdict after June 7th, 2010, where I think for the first time all the political parties were saying how little they have done for Bhopal. So actually we think in 2014 in elections in Madhya Pradesh, Bhopal Gas will be an issue. But otherwise, what we have seen in last so many years, that they use it as a vote bank issue, but have not done almost anything. And what the situation in Bhopal is pretty unique, because people who were affected due to gas exposure all live in the old part of Bhopal, which is a much poorer part, whereas the other, that's the 36 wards, and the 20 wards, which is the new part of the Bhopal, which is much more elite part, was never affected and therefore never got compensation. So all politicians have always constantly tried to divide people on this issue, that you should get compensation, people who are not really affected, whereas doing nothing for the people who are affected in terms of getting them compensation. And in the last 10 years, where the BJP government has been in power, there has been only one agenda for them. Their politicians is basically get compensation for people who live in 20 wards, because that is, it is mostly a vote bank issue for them.
Thank you, Srihari, and thanks, Rachna, for taking that call. We have another caller. Shrikant, you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm there, sir.
All right. Shrikant, go ahead with your question, sir.
Yeah, hi, Rachna. Thank you very much for coming on to this show today and explaining the Bhopal Gas Victims related work that you guys are doing. My question is, a lot of us, we just watch what is going on in India on television channels. And I'm so surprised that you've been working for past 12 or 13 years, close to 13 years if I am right. I Googled and then saw that you've been working from 1999. You returned back from 1999 from US. So what do you get the sense of media here? Do you think they're doing the right thing? Because I never ever knew the intensity of problem until I'm listening to your voice today.
Media, just like, in US, it is exactly in India. They work on crisis formula. So if there's no crisis, they are not bothered about anything. I mean, it's not news that people in Bhopal are not getting clean drinking water. It's not news that one person every month dies, one person every day dies due to gas exposure related illness. It's not news that still there is toxic waste in and around the factory, which contaminates the environment of 40,000 people. So all of this is not news. So, and that's how media responds. Media responds on sensation. And after the June 7th verdict happened in 2010, why have we let Warren Anderson go? What has happened to Warren Anderson? Why hasn't he been extradited? While that is an important issue, but in terms of holding the corporations accountable or helping in getting rid of some of the ongoing misery, government and the media media has not addressed or even taken the time to go in depth in these stories and investigate it. And that's how most of these media channels run.
Right. Thanks, Shrikant, for your question. So in terms of going back to our discussion on the positive work or the positive impact that the fight has managed to brought on, I'd like to just talk to you about the Sambhavna Trust, which has been doing amazing work with providing the clinical services to the gas-affected survivors or maintaining all documents related to the tragedy. Can you please share more information about the Sambhavna Trust? Again, this could be helpful from the listener's point of view if they want to support their activities or contribute financially.
Yeah. So Sambhavna is a very unique place. Basically, by its word, it means possibilities. And it has two meanings. One being possibilities, and another, if you join it, Sambhavna means compassion. And this is a clinic that provides free medical care to people exposed to the toxic gases, and also people who have been drinking contaminated water. In fact, this is the only place that provides free medical care for people who have been drinking contaminated water. And here we basically have tried to do something very different. We've tried to break the circle of poison, that's what we call it, because if you really look at it, it's the same chemical corporations who manufacture also the drugs. They also are the pharmaceutical corporations. So we have, in this clinic, we offer treatment through Ayurveda and through yoga, and through Panchkarma, and through English medicine also. But we find that there is a lot of relief in people who have been taking medicines for last 20, 25 years in kilograms. And we were talking about antibiotics, steroids, psychotropic drugs in kilograms, but and finding no relief, no sustained relief. And this kind of integrated treatment provides people a lot of relief. And another unique thing that this clinic does is of community help, because even today, which is 27 years later, the government of Madhya Pradesh almost has no data on what people of Bhopal are suffering from. What are the top 5 ailments? How many people have cancer? And this clinic basically tries to collate all this data and tries to get a better picture of what is happening to people in the community, what diseases they are suffering from, and also trains people who are not literate, women. Like we have 70 community health volunteers who, without taking any money, basically monitor the health of the community. So these are mostly women who are illiterate but have been trained in taking blood pressure and hemoglobin levels and doing cervical cancer screenings, which is very common in women in Bhopal. So basically, not just doing everything, but also empowering people and making them realize that they have a power to change the situation. And also this place has a massive documentation center. We've tried to document everything on the legal aspects and on the medical aspects and the corporate aspects since 1984 till now, so that people who are researching, students who are interested, academics who want to know more can come to this place and get more information, because government has not done any such on any such thing and will not do any such thing.
Right. Earlier we were briefly talking about the lack of awareness around the issues. Now, in terms of addressing these issues right at the core of it, have there been any effort, not from the government side obviously, but from your side to have the sort of a case study or even an introduction to the Bhopal gas tragedy to the school kids? Like a chapter or something. We learned about the Hiroshima and Nagasaki disaster in somewhere in like 5th, 6th standard or something like that. Is there any effort or has there been any sort of push for these kind of things?
Yeah, actually, this was one of our long-standing demands, which we got implemented in the curriculum of the NCRT for the 5th grade, that Bhopal be included in the curriculum. And this was in 2008 when it got incorporated for the first time. We actually walked from Bhopal to Delhi with many things as demands, and this was one of the demands that people, students should be taught about Bhopal. And in addition, we also try to do a lot of things. In U.S., we have ICJB, which is International Campaign for Justice in Bhopal. North America, where there is active volunteers who go and go out and reach out to different universities and colleges and high schools, and we try to do similar thing in India as well. Movie screenings and all that stuff. But we have pushed this, and this was incorporated in the class 5th curriculum of the NCRT.
I see. Well, that's great. So is this only, like, in which medium is this, in Hindi or English, or?
It should be in both mediums.
I see.
It should be in both mediums. I mean, it's a very small thing. I mean, now that the subject of environment is compulsory in most of the schools, so there could be a lot more that could be done taking Bhopal, and taking it forward from that. But that's also something that people here will have to push for.
Right, okay. Rachna, we have another question online. Archana from LA. She wants to know if there are any NGOs, specifically aid, coming forward to give a helping hand with the fight for justice, as in helping with medical assistance or even otherwise.
Yeah, AID, which is Association for India's Development, has been involved with the Bhopal campaign since actually 1999. Actually, I got involved I was part of AID, and I am still part of AID. But while I was in US, I was part of AID, Ann Arbor, and that's how I got introduced to the issue of Bhopal. So there are definitely groups in US that are involved, AID being one. Then there is Pesticide Action Network that helps. Then there is a group called Healthcare Without Harm. So there are a few groups in US that have definitely helped, and AID has been really instrumental in supporting some of the big campaigns we have led in the fight for justice.
Right. And I have Pradeep from Machilipatnam, Andhra Pradesh. He wants to know how much compensation has been given to the victims, and also if there have been any employment-related benefits given to the victims' families.
So people got 93%. So the total number of people who were affected were almost 6 lakhs out of which is 600,000. Out of to be exact, 574,000. Out of these, 93% of the people got only 25,000 rupees as compensation for lifetime injuries. To give you an example, a person who lived right across from the factory, who will probably suffer injuries all through his life, has only received 25,000 as compensation. For deaths, people have received about 2 lakhs in compensation, and one has to remember that this amount did not come right away. It took almost anywhere from 8 to 12 years to get this money. And most of it was either taken by lawyers, now a big problem for the people who were not literate. And I think yes, there is a big case right now. We are fighting to get more compensation from Dow Chemical and Union Carbide. And that is for $8.1 billion. We're basically asking for about 6 lakh. Which we think is a pretty reasonable amount for every person who is affected as compensation, and for deaths we are asking something like 19 lakhs. Then in terms of economic rehabilitation, a very, very poor track record. I have to say that almost 100 crores has been spent earlier, and you cannot find even 100 people who have been able to get jobs. Just now, 2 years ago, government of Madhya Pradesh got another 104 crores, which is something like $22 million. And I will be very surprised if they will be able to give employment to more than 100 people. Because there is no thinking that has gone in on, what kind of jobs people need, what are the skills, what does the market require, nothing. Money comes, let's spend it, let's get out contracts, let's get tenders, let's also get commissions and forget about the victims. And that has been the view from the very, very beginning.
Right. Well, you briefly mentioned about your association with AID back in '99, and that's how you got involved in the cause eventually. So, going back in time a little bit, I also read that you were sort of working for Dow, I mean indirectly of course, when you first started out your professional career. When did you actually realize that Dow was the company that's responsible for this Bhopal gas tragedy? While you were employed or before you were working for Dow?
I never really worked for Dow. I worked for a firm called Accenture, and my client happened to be Dow.
Right.
And I knew before that Dow, before I joined, I think that was the time when the merger had not finalized, but I knew about the merger between Union Carbide and Dow. And one of my main reasons to join Dow was to join Accenture and then work and then have Dow as a client was to. I was very young and I just couldn't understand how people who were working right next to me, same age group, same, almost the same kind of background, could not understand that what Dow was doing was not right. I thought I could bring a change from being in the inside. And that is why I joined. And I realized after 2 years that a corporation does not have a brain that thinks about environmental record or, about injustice or what's right or wrong. It only thinks about bottom line profit. And it was profitable to merge with Carbide. It was profitable not to listen to people of Bhopal. It was so, and that's why I realized that I could never bring the change from being in the inside and that I had to be outside. And that is when I quit. That was in 2002, and I decided I'll move to India. I'd never been to Bhopal, and I would move to Bhopal and see if I could work with people in Bhopal and see if I could bring any change.
Right. And obviously, you probably couldn't have done without your parents' support, in this whole endeavor of yours. Because giving away your career, your education for a cause that you're probably not directly associated with is something very hard to convince. How did your parents react to when you sort of were going through this whole transition?
My mother, who's also in U.S. in Michigan, she was not very supportive. She was very upset that I was leaving, more upset that I was leaving U.S. and moving to India. At that time, I didn't think it was permanent, but she was upset that I was quitting my job and saying bye to all these nice things and comforts. But I never saw it as a sacrifice, and I've never seen it in the last 10 years. I think I was very, very miserable in a corporate-like job, and I have a lot of peace of mind knowing what I do and how I do it, and I've never thought of it as sacrifice, and it has not been a waste of education. I think I went to business school, and I think that all of it has only helped in understanding how corporations function. So it has never been a sacrifice. Now my mother is very, very supportive, and my rest of my family who's in India. So, because now they have realized what I do. So yeah, everything is very good now.
Right. So you felt as if returning to Bhopal was like a homecoming for you. Was like a home away from home.
Yeah. That's not how I came back. I had never been to Bhopal actually. I had only, the disaster happened when I was 7 years old, and like everyone, I had heard about, Bhopal, that this terrible thing happened. And I thought I would just give it a try and see how things would work. So and they did work. They did work out, and I was very happy, and I still am very happy doing what I do.
Right, right. Well, you certainly were, obviously not prepared for everything that you would experience at Bhopal or, living with the victims. You just take it as it was coming to you. And I also happened to read about an incident where you were actually protesting outside the PM's. Was that the office or residence? I forgot, but
Office.
Okay. Yeah, you were demanding for like a 5-minute interaction with the Prime Minister along with the victims, and you were arrested for doing that.
Yeah. It was 20, I think it was 25 of us that were arrested. This is after we had walked for 37 days, covering a distance of 850 kilometers.
Wow.
With children as young as 4, with women as old as 80, and asking for very basic things, asking for clean water, asking for fair compensation, asking for better medical care. And after being on a dharna for almost 4 months, Prime Minister would not meet with us. He just wouldn't give us 5 minutes of his time. So we decided that we would go at his office and just lie down there and ask for time. And before the PM could come, the police came and they arrested us. And they took us to the police station, beat us up pretty badly, and then sent us to Bihar jail for 11 days. And our crime was to disturb peace and security risk at the PM's office. But PM continued to risk the lives of thousands of people, and there was no one to question him on that.
I think this incident that you just laid out sums up the whole situation in a nutshell. It's like the lack of response from every single authority. There's no clear responsibilities or sense of ownership, and they continue to neglect the victims and their fight for justice. Rachna, I have another question online. The question is there any team appointed by the government or even by, I guess, he meant private, but I'll say by the activists or someone who actually are monitoring the poison levels or the level of contamination in and around Bhopal? Is it still contaminated, or has it been any improvement?
So so one has to understand that the issue of contamination predates the issue of disaster. The disaster happened in 1984, but the contamination started back in 81. We have documents to prove from Union Carbide own documents, because we are fighting a case in New York. It clearly shows us that Union Carbide knew about the contamination from 81. It had started back then. So there has been almost 15 studies carried out by NGOs and government, basically saying that up to 3 kilometers water is contaminated. Water is sometimes contaminated up to 150 meters, sometimes 100 meters, and sometimes 70 meters. And the chemicals that are found in this water and soil can cause damage to liver, lungs, kidney, causes children to have birth defects, causes cancer. All of this is already out. But is our government doing anything to make sure that people do not ingest this poison on a daily basis? Absolutely nothing. We have been fighting for many years. I mean, clean water is one thing that we have fought for and finally won. But in terms of the cleanup, we have been fighting that there should be a full comprehensive assessment of the depth and spread of the contamination. And to be honest, we do not have agencies in India who have the expertise and the technicalities to do this. But government can easily get farms outside India to do this, but they have, they have almost no political will. So we are fighting this case in New York, we are fighting this case in India, and we are fighting parallelly we are fighting a battle on the street that this be cleaned up. But I mean, we are getting somewhere, but it is taking a lot of time. And the more time it takes, the more people it poisons in this process. More people get poisoned in this process.
Right, right. I mean, I know individual contributions in terms of their time, effort, and money play a major role in sustaining these kind of efforts. So, for the sake of our listeners, Rachna, if you can just share some insight into how an individual can contribute to the overall cause, I think it will help not only for me personally, but also for the listeners.
Definitely, I think there is a lot individuals can do. I mean, from as simple thing as writing, writing a letter to an editor, or writing to your local politician and raising this issue, but also giving up your own time. Coming to Bhopal, or if you cannot come to Bhopal, and you have certain skills, we could definitely use that, donating your time, donating your money, donating some equipment, all of these, donating your skills, all of these play a very big role. I mean, where we are now is basically a big team of volunteers who give all of this, their time, skill, and money, and that is how we sustain ourselves. So, I mean, people could write to me, and I could give more ideas depending on what their skill is. But individual contributions definitely do matter a lot, and that is the only way we sustain ourselves, because one has to remember that we do not take any funding from the government or from the corporations, because we hold both of them party to this crime in Bhopal.
Right, right. Well, thank you very, very much for your time, Rachna. And on behalf of the NRI Samay team and all the listeners, we sincerely wish, hope, and maybe even some of us will contribute in our own little ways to sort of get some sort of closure to the, the victims of the Bhopal gas tragedy. And Rachna, also thank you immensely for all your contributions, and certainly for being the inspiration you are.
Oh, well, thank you for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there you go, folks. To all the listeners on NRI Samay, we were just talking to Rachna Dhingra, who is a Bhopal gas activist and has been working for the cause of the victims for the past 10-13 years now. And towards the end of the call, she mentioned as to how individuals can contribute to this cause, to this fight for justice. So please do visit bhopal.net, or you can even go to studentsforbhopal.org. These are a few websites on which all the activities, all the campaigns are listed. So if any of you are interested, please visit these websites, or you can directly contact Rachna also. Thank you for tuning into NRI Samay. We'll be back next week, Saturday, Sunday, same time. So please do write to us and give us your valuable feedback. And we are on facebook.com/NRI Samay. Please subscribe to our videos at youtube.com/NRI Samay. And it's your feedbacks, it's your comments that keeps us going. So please don't stop them from coming. Thank you, and we will be back next week.
Friends, that was an excellent show. Next week we have NRI Matters. That's a company based in Hyderabad. So what they do is they help out NRIs in various matters, whether you are trying to start a business in India or you're trying to move back or you have tax situations, etc. So please join us back. I think it will be useful for a lot of NRIs, and hopefully that will help out some of you. Okay, friends. So next Saturday, 9 a.m. Pacific time. India time is 9:30 p.m. on Saturday. Eastern time is noon on Saturday. And then we'll have a show on Sunday, same time. It will be with National Alliance for Street Vendors. So there's an NGO for all the street vendors across India. They have recently won some awards also. We want to hear from them. And it's going to be a great show again. All right. Thanks, folks. We'll join with you next week, same time. Have a good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are.
Bhopal.